Something followed us into the forest, not to kill us, to replace one of us. I knew what it was before I saw its face. A mimic. The kind that doesn't hunt you for meat. The kind that studies you until it can wear you convincingly enough that the world can't tell the difference. We'd driven out to camp for 2 nights, me, Mark, and Sarah. The week had been loud, and the idea of silence felt like medicine. A ridge trail, a small lake, one marked route in and the same route back out. Simple. By the time we pitched our tents, the light was already thinning. The air had that clean, cold edge that makes everything feel sharper. We ate, we joked. We sat by the fire until the sparks died down and the stars looked close enough to touch. Nothing felt wrong. That's what bothers me now. Because if something had felt wrong immediately, I could have told myself I'd been warned. I could have told myself I'd ignored a signal. But the forest gave us nothing. No omen, no sudden drop in temperature, no weird voices in the trees. Just a calm night. And then, a quiet little deviation that seemed too ordinary to matter. It started with the trail markers. Before turning in, I tied 3 orange ribbons on low branches. One near camp, one at the start of the ridge trail, and one where the path forked near a fallen log. Cheap, bright, impossible to miss. In the morning, Mark was the first one to notice. "Did you move the ribbons?" he asked. I was pouring water into a pot, half awake. "No." Sarah shook her head. "Why would I?" Mark pointed past the fire pit. The ribbons were there, but they'd been retied. Higher up, too high. Not impossible, but awkward. Like whoever did it had long arms or didn't mind reaching into the branches. The knots were neat, not like the ones I make. I told myself another camper had come through early and helped us, but there was no trash, no footprints, no sign of anyone. Just those 3 ribbons, repositioned like the forest had opinions about where our eyes should go. By late morning, we started up the ridge. The first hour was normal, pine needles underfoot, hard earth, the occasional patch of frost in the shadows. The kind of hike that makes conversation come in small, comfortable pieces. Then the forest went quiet. Not gradually, instantly. The birds cut out mid-pattern. The insects vanished into silence. Even the wind seemed to decide it wasn't allowed. I stopped walking. Mark took 2 steps more before he noticed. "What's going on?" Sarah whispered, and her voice sounded too loud, as if it had nowhere to land. We all stood there, listening, not for a sound, for the absence of sound. That's when I saw movement down the slope between the trees. Not a deer, not a bear. Something taller, too upright, too still even while it moved. It slid sideways through the trees without turning its shoulders, like it didn't need to respect the shape of its own body. Mark squinted. "Is that a guy?" The thing stopped. Then it turned its head toward us. Slowly, deliberately. Something in my chest tightened, not with fear at first, but with recognition, because it looked like it was taking measurements, not of the trail, of us. Mark shifted his weight, 1 foot forward. The thing mirrored him, not perfectly, close enough to be nauseating. Sarah took a small step back. The thing took a small step forward, always matching, always calibrating. It wasn't stalking, it was practicing. I heard my own voice, thin and quiet. "It's a mimic," I said. They both looked at me. "What?" Mark whispered. "A mimic," I repeated. "It learns you. That's what it's doing." The thing tilted its head slightly, as if it had understood the label. Then it stepped behind a tree and disappeared. Not retreated, not ran, just erased itself from the visible world like it had never needed to be seen in the first place. We didn't run. We should have. But the mind doesn't always choose panic first. Sometimes it chooses procedure. We checked the trail. We checked the map. We checked the compass. The compass spun. Not wild like it was broken. Smooth, purposeful rotation like it couldn't decide which north to obey. I unfolded the map with shaking hands. The ridge trail was still there, but something about it looked wrong. The switchback we'd climbed wasn't shown. The fork near the fallen log had become a clean, straight line deeper into the forest. The route out looked simplified, like someone had redrawn it from memory. Badly. Sarah's voice was quiet. That wasn't like this. No, I said. I tried to follow our footsteps back down the trail. They were there, but faint, as if the ground had softened and then set again. And then I noticed something that made my blood go cold. Alongside our prints were other impressions, not full footprints, weight marks, compressed earth, like something heavy had stood in certain places for a moment, watching, then moved on, matching our pace, keeping distance, staying close enough to learn. We turned back toward camp early, no arguments, no debate, just a shared, silent agreement that we didn't want to be on that ridge when the sun went down. The forest stayed quiet the whole way back, like it was holding the sound in. When we reached camp, the 3 tents were exactly as we'd left them. But the fire pit had been disturbed, not ruined, adjusted, sticks placed a little differently, a stone shifted to widen the circle. Small domestic changes, the kind you'd make if you were trying to copy how humans live. Mark stared at it, jaw tight. Someone's messing with us. I didn't answer. Because the changes weren't messy, they weren't cruel, they were careful. That's what the mimic does. It doesn't destroy, it rehearses. That night, we didn't talk much. The fire burned lower than usual. None of us wanted it high enough to silhouette us against the trees. When we finally went into our tents, sleep didn't come. Not real sleep, just that shallow hovering where your body keeps trying to drop and your mind keeps catching it. Sometime after midnight, I woke to breathing outside my tent. Slow, deep, too controlled. I held my breath. The breathing stopped, not faded, stopped, as if it had been listening to my lungs and decided to pause when I paused. I waited a long time before moving. When I shifted slightly, the fabric of the sleeping bag whispered. The breathing resumed, matching my rhythm, testing. I reached for my headlamp. The breathing held again. The mimic wasn't walking around the camp. It was stationed somewhere outside, close enough to hear the smallest change, close enough to learn how each of us sounded when we thought we were alone. Then, softly, something moved near the fire pit. Not footsteps, a drag, a slow reposition, like someone settling into a better angle. And I understood something with sudden clarity. It wasn't trying to scare us away. It was trying to decide which of us it could become fastest. At dawn, we found the proof. 4 sets of footprints around the fire pit. We were only 3 people. The 4th set was large, but the shape was wrong. Not quite a boot, not quite bare feet. The impression was deeper at the heel than it should have been, like the weight distribution was guessed at. The trail markers were gone, all of them. And in their place, leading away from camp, were new ribbons, same orange color, same material, tied in a clean line deeper into the trees. A route, an invitation, or a funnel. Sarah stared at the ribbons, face pale. That's not the way back. I looked at the ground again. The 4th set of prints faced the same direction as mine, like it had stood there all night, watching the angle of my shoulders, the placement of my feet, the way I shifted my weight when I was tired, like it had chosen. I didn't say it out loud, but I didn't need to, because all 3 of us were thinking the same thing. When we started walking again, we wouldn't know if the person behind us was still the same person who'd left camp. We didn't follow the ribbons. That was the first smart thing we did. We packed fast, but not chaotically. Quiet movements, minimal talking. The kind of careful you become when you realize the forest is listening for patterns. Mark kept looking over his shoulder like he expected to see it standing between the trees in full daylight, wearing a body it hadn't earned yet. Sarah checked her phone 3 times, even though there was no signal. I kept my eyes on the ground, on our footprints, on that 4th set that didn't belong to any of us, because once you see proof, you stop being able to pretend. And a mimic doesn't need you to believe in it. It just needs you to behave. We chose the obvious route out, The trail we'd walked in on, the route that should have led back to the car in under 2 hours. The map said so, my memory said so, the terrain said so, but the forest didn't. Within 15 minutes, the path changed. Not the direction, not dramatically, the feel. The trees felt closer together. The spaces between trunks tightened as if the woods were gently closing a door behind us. The light turned flatter, like the canopy was thickening even though it looked the same. Mark stopped and turned in a slow circle. "This isn't right," he said. Sarah's voice shook. "It's the same trail." "It's not," Mark said, and he sounded angry in that frightened way people do when they need anger to keep from breaking. I opened the map again. The trail line was still there, but the fork that should have been 20 minutes ahead was now marked much closer, and the ridge contour lines, subtle at first, looked different, like someone had redrawn the land itself without understanding how it worked. Sarah leaned in. "That's impossible." I didn't answer, because the mimic wasn't only copying people, it had copied the map once already. And now, it was rewriting the idea of out. We found the first helpful sign 20 minutes later. A cairn, a neat stack of stones at the side of the path. Not something we'd left, not old either. The rocks were clean, arranged with intention. A little arrow-shaped stick lay beside it, pointing left. Mark snorted. "Great, it wants to guide us now." Sarah stared at the stick. "What if it's actually someone?" "No," I said without thinking. Both of them looked at me. I swallowed. "It doesn't leave signs like that," I said. "People leave signs to be found. This is something trying to make us move the way it wants." Mark's jaw worked. "So what? We ignore it?" "Yes," I said. "We ignore everything it builds." We stepped past the cairn. 5 minutes later, the path split, left and right. And I felt my stomach drop because I knew that split hadn't been there yesterday. There should have been a gradual bend, a worn curve around a boulder, not a clean fork like a decision point. Sarah whispered, "Which way?" I checked the map. The map showed a fork. It hadn't shown one last night, but now it did. Clean line, confident print, as if it had always been there. Mark looked from the left path to the right. Both looked equally walked, equally plausible. That was the problem. A mimic doesn't trap you with walls. It traps you with options. We chose the right path, not because we were sure, because the left path had fresh marks near the entry, subtle compression in the soil, the same wrong weight distribution I'd seen near the fire pit. Not footprints. A pause. A presence. Like something had stood there and waited to see what we'd choose. We took the right path. Behind us, the forest stayed quiet. No birds, no insects. A silence so complete it felt like the sound had been turned off. Mark swallowed hard. "It's following us." "No," I said. He looked at me sharply. "It's ahead of us," I said. "It doesn't follow. It predicts." Sarah's eyes shone with tears she refused to let fall. "How do we get out then?" I thought of the breathing last night, how it matched me, how it stopped when I stopped. It wasn't hunting, it was synchronizing. "We stop being predictable," I said. Mark gave a harsh laugh. "How?" I didn't answer right away, because the answer was simple and terrible. "You can't," I said softly. "Not completely. Humans are patterns." The first time we saw it again, it didn't show its full shape. It didn't need to. We were crossing a shallow dip in the land, a place where the path narrowed between two clusters of trees. I glanced left, and in the gaps between trunks, I saw something tall and pale, motionless in shadow. Not a person. A suggestion of a person. Like the woods were trying on the outline. I froze. Mark noticed my stop and stopped too. Sarah bumped into him, then stopped. 3 people, all still. The pale outline moved, not toward us. It moved in the same way a reflection moves, matching the pause, holding it, like it was learning the weight of stillness. Mark whispered, "I see it." Sarah whispered, "Don't look." I forced my eyes forward. A mimic learns fastest when it has your attention. That was the one advantage we had. We didn't have to fight it. We just had to starve it. We walked, slowly, no sudden movements, no running, because fear changes your gait, changes your breathing, changes your posture. And it would copy that too. Behind us, a soft rustle of leaves shifted. Not a step, a reposition, like it was adjusting to keep the correct angle on our backs. An hour passed. Maybe more. Time stopped behaving normally once the forest went quiet. Minutes stretched, thoughts repeated. We came to a clearing I didn't recognize. A circular open space with low grass and a single dead tree in the center, white bark peeled back like exposed bone. At the base of the tree sat a backpack, a hiking pack, dark green, weathered, with a water bottle clipped to the side. Sarah stared. "Is that ours?" Mark's face tightened. "No, but the pack looked familiar anyway, the kind you see on every trail. That's how it works. A mimic uses common things to feel safe." The pack was placed carefully, like it had been set down, not dropped, like a person had stopped to rest, like someone had waited. Mark stepped toward it. I grabbed his arm. "Don't," I said. He jerked his arm free. "It could be supplies, it could be a sign, it could be bait," I said. "It wants to see how you move when you think you found help." Mark stared at the bag, breathing hard. Then, slowly, he backed away. Sarah exhaled shakily. We skirted the clearing, keeping distance from the pack and the dead tree. As we reached the far edge, Sarah's phone buzzed. All three of us froze. No signal, no service, no reason for it to buzz. Sarah fumbled it out. The screen lit with a notification. Blank sender, no app icon, just text. Moved correctly. Sarah's face drained of color. Mark whispered, "It can see our choices." I took the phone from her with shaking hands. Another line appeared beneath it. "Try again." Then the screen went black. The trail shifted again after that, not abruptly, like a gradual suggestion. The ground sloped in a direction that nudged us off course. The trees thinned, then thickened, then thinned again. We kept walking, but something in my chest tightened with each step, because I knew we were being guided without being touched. The worst part was how careful it was. It didn't rush us. It didn't chase. It didn't show itself fully. It just kept presenting little moments, choices, distractions, bait, so it could observe our reactions. Like a tailor taking measurements, like an actor watching someone to steal their mannerisms. Sarah whispered, "What does it want?" I thought of the fourth footprints, the wrong heel weight, the breathing that matched me. "It wants one of us," I said. "Not dead, not missing, just replaced." Mark swallowed. "How does that happen?" I didn't want to say it, because saying it made it feel more real. "It copies you until it can walk like you," I said. "Then it steps into your place when no one's looking straight at you." Sarah's eyes widened. "So we just keep looking?" I shook my head. "No," I said. "That's the trap. If you stare at it, it learns faster." Mark's voice was hoarse. "So what do we do?" I stopped walking. They both stopped with me. I kept my eyes forward, and I spoke as calmly as I could. "We make one rule," I said. "We do not separate. We do not follow anything we didn't place ourselves. And if anyone hears their name in the woods, no matter how familiar the voice is, no one answers." A pause. Sarah whispered, "Why the name?" Because I'd heard it already. Not out loud. Not yet. But I could feel it coming. The mimic didn't only want to wear our bodies. It wanted to wear our trust. And the easiest way to open a person is to speak to them like you belong. I tightened my grip on the map. "We keep moving," I said. "And we get to the car before it finishes learning one of us well enough to fool the other two." Behind us, in the trees, something shifted. Not a step, a a perfect imitation of the way Mark shifted his weight when he was nervous. And Mark, without turning, went very still, as if he felt it too. We didn't hear it call Mark's name. That's what still unsettles me. I expected a voice, a trick, something obvious enough to resist. Instead, Mark just slowed, not stopped, not froze. He drifted half a step behind Sarah and me, like his legs had decided on a different rhythm. I felt it before I saw it. The spacing was wrong. "Mark," I said, careful not to turn fully. "Stay even with us." He nodded. Too smooth. He stepped forward and fell back into place. Relief hit me hard. Then the forest reacted. The silence tightened. The air thickened, like pressure building before a storm. Leaves stopped moving. Even our footsteps sounded muted. Sarah whispered, "What did you do?" "I don't know," I said. But I did. The mimic had failed a test, and it adjusted. The trail ended without warning. No clearing, no marker. Just dense trees grown together, forming a wall where the path should have continued. "That's impossible," Sarah said. "The car's this way." I checked the map. The trail was still printed there, straight through solid forest. I folded it. It's lying now. Behind us, the path back felt longer than it should have been. The trees leaned inward slightly, like the forest had decided which direction mattered. Mark spoke. "We should split up." The words landed wrong, too easy. Sarah turned sharply. "What?" "Cover more ground," Mark said, "if one of us finds the way." "No," I said immediately. Mark looked at me. Something in his eyes lagged, just a fraction. "Why not?" he asked. "Say my name," I said. He frowned. "What?" "Say my name." He hesitated, not long. When he spoke, he said it correctly, but not the way Mark always did. Sarah stepped back. "That's not how you say it." Behind him, between the trees, something pale shifted, tall, incomplete. The mimic stepped closer, not fully revealed, but close enough now. It wasn't wearing Mark. It was finishing him. Two versions stood there, almost identical. One breathing too carefully, one not breathing at all. "There aren't two Marks," I said quietly. "There's one left to decide." The mimic moved first. It spoke his name, soft, familiar, in the exact tone his mother used. Mark flinched. That was enough. The mimic stepped forward. Mark stepped back. They traded places, not cleanly, not fully, but enough. Sarah screamed. The thing turned toward us, now fully wearing Mark's face. "I'm fine," it said. Perfect voice, perfect cadence, wrong stillness. Mark always swayed when he was tired. This thing didn't. "Don't look at it," I told Sarah. "Look at me." The mimic stepped closer. "Come on," it said gently. "We'll figure this out." "You can't come with us," I said. Its face tightened. Confusion flickered, brief, sharp. "You're wrong in small ways," I said. "And small ways matter." Sarah screamed Mark's name. The thing turned, and that hesitation, just that, was enough. I shoved Sarah backward down the trail. "Run." We ran. Behind us, the forest exploded into sound. Birds, wind, branches snapping. The mimic screamed, not in pain, but frustration. The trail buckled, but we didn't stop. We burst into the parking lot and slammed the car doors shut. The forest edge stood still, watching. We never went back. Not because we were afraid of the forest, but because we understood it. A mimic doesn't chase, it doesn't hunt randomly. It waits until it can walk out unnoticed. Mark didn't die in those woods. He just didn't come out first. Somewhere, a man with his face learned the last small mistakes. The sway when tired, the pause before answering, the way he said my name. And when he finally stepped out of the trees, no one questioned him. That's the rule. If the copy is good enough, the forest lets it go.